What lies beneath the soil of the Netherlands' most haunted cemeteries? Are they peaceful resting places or gateways to the unknown? In this video, we uncover 15 most haunted cemeteries in the Netherlands, where spine-chilling ghost stories and eerie encounters have terrified visitors for generations. Prepare yourself for a journey into the supernatural that will leave you questioning the line between the living and the dead. 1. Sint Janskerkhof Cemetery, Utrecht. In the heart of Utrecht lies Sint Janskerkhof Cemetery, shrouded in both history and an unsettling presence. The legend begins centuries ago, when the site served as a burial ground for plague victims. Late at night, visitors often report hearing faint coughing and whispers, thought to be echoes of those who succumbed to the disease. One story tells of a young woman named Helena, who was buried here in the 1600s after succumbing to the plague. Her restless spirit is said to wander the grounds, seeking the child she left behind. Witnesses describe seeing a pale figure clutching a small doll, her face contorted in grief. One particularly chilling account came from a caretaker who, while locking up one evening, saw a shadow dart between the tombstones. The air grew icy, and he heard a sorrowful voice whisper, "Where is my baby?" Frozen in fear, he turned to see the figure of a woman standing mere feet away, her empty eyes staring into his soul. Visitors brave enough to linger at Sint Janskerkhof often feel an unshakable sadness. Cameras malfunction, and footsteps echo when no one else is around. Locals avoid the cemetery after sunset, believing Helena's presence intensifies in the darkness. 2. Oude Cemetery, Amsterdam. Nestled beneath Amsterdam's iconic Oude Kerk is a crypt that has long been the source of chilling tales. The church dates back to the 13th century, and its cemetery holds countless souls, including sailors, merchants, and plague victims. One of the most infamous legends is of Captain Willem, a sailor buried in the crypt. It is said that Willem was cursed by a witch after stealing her gold, and his restless spirit now roams the grounds. Tourists report hearing heavy footsteps behind them, as though a man in boots were following. On misty nights, a figure in a tattered naval coat has been spotted near the graveyard's entrance. A chilling tale involves a photographer who ventured into the crypt for a project. As he snapped a photo of an ancient tomb, he heard a guttural laugh echo through the chamber. Reviewing his pictures later, he discovered a blurry face glaring back at him from the shadows. 3rd Street Bavokerk Cemetery, Haarlem. In Haarlem's historic St. Bavokerk Cemetery, the legend of the weeping monk haunts all who visit. Centuries ago, a monk named Brother Elias was accused of heresy and executed on the church grounds. Before his death, he swore he would never rest in peace. At night, visitors claim to hear soft weeping and prayers in Latin. One harrowing story comes from a woman who stayed near the cemetery during a storm. As lightning illuminated the graveyard, she saw a hooded figure kneeling by a grave, weeping uncontrollably. When she returned the next day, the grave was covered in fresh dirt, though no recent burials had been reported. Eerie phenomena persist. Candles flicker wildly, cold drafts sweep through the cemetery, and spectral chanting can be heard from within the church. Some say the spirit of Brother Elias still seeks redemption, while others believe he curses those who dare to disturb his rest. 4. Zorgvlied Cemetery, Amsterdam. Zorgvlied Cemetery, known for its picturesque beauty, hides a dark reputation beneath its serene surface. The cemetery is said to be haunted by a bride who perished on her wedding day in a tragic carriage accident. Her spirit, dressed in a tattered wedding gown, has been seen wandering the pathways. One chilling encounter involved a group of friends visiting the cemetery at dusk. As they approached the bride's grave, a cold wind swept through, and they heard the faint strains of a wedding march. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the fog, her face pale and expressionless, her veil fluttering as though carried by an unseen force. The group fled, only to find the gates locked, trapping them inside for what felt like hours. Visitors also report hearing faint sobbing and feeling an inexplicable sadness. The bride's spirit, it seems, still mourns the life she never lived. 5. Ter Navolging Cemetery, Leiden. Ter Navolging Cemetery in Leiden is steeped in eerie stories, but none more chilling than that of the Watcher. The cemetery, dating back to the 18th century, is known for its elaborate tombstones and eerie quiet. The Watcher is said to be the ghost of a gravekeeper who died on the job. He is often seen standing motionless near the entrance, his hollow eyes following visitors. One chilling story involves a student who visited to research local legends. As she took notes, she noticed an old man watching her from a distance. Thinking he was a caretaker, she called out, but he didn't respond. Moments later, he vanished into thin air. Visitors report hearing footsteps crunching on gravel when no one is there, and seeing faint lights floating among the graves. Locals believe the Watcher still protects the cemetery, ensuring the dead rest undisturbed. 6. Eik and Duinen Cemetery, The Hague. Eik and Duinen Cemetery, nestled in The Hague, is known for its peaceful surroundings during the day, but after sunset, the atmosphere shifts to something far more unsettling. Legend has it that a spectral figure, known as the Grieving Woman, roams the cemetery. This figure is said to be the ghost of a widow who visited the grave of her husband every day until her death. A particularly chilling account comes from a passerby who decided to cut through the cemetery late at night. He noticed a woman dressed in black sitting on a bench near a gravestone. As he approached to ask if she needed help, she turned to face him, and her eyes were hollow voids. Before he could react, she let out a bone-chilling wail and vanished into the mist. Visitors report unexplained cold spots, faint sobbing, and even the sensation of being followed. Many refuse to visit the cemetery at night, fearing an encounter with the Grieving Woman. 7. Groene Kerkje Cemetery, Oegstgeest. The Groene Kerkje Cemetery in Oegstgeest is small but notorious for its eerie hauntings. The most famous ghost associated with this cemetery is that of a young mother who died in childbirth. Locals claim her spirit searches for the child she never got to hold. One evening, a visitor to the cemetery reported hearing soft lullabies in the wind. Intrigued, she followed the sound to a secluded part of the graveyard, where she saw a glowing figure cradling an invisible baby. When the visitor gasped, the figure turned, revealing a face filled with sorrow, before disappearing. People often feel an overwhelming sadness when visiting this cemetery. Some even report hearing disembodied whispers or the soft cries of a baby echoing through the graveyard. 8. Nieuwe Ooster Cemetery, Amsterdam. Nieuwe Ooster Cemetery is a vast and beautiful burial ground, but beneath its serene surface lies a history of paranormal activity. During World War II, the cemetery became the final resting place for many soldiers, and their spirits are said to linger. A chilling tale involves a man who was walking his dog near the war memorial late at night. Suddenly, his dog began growling at something in the distance. The man looked up to see a group of shadowy figures standing silently by the memorial, their uniforms faintly illuminated by the moonlight. As he approached, the figures dissolved into the mist. Other visitors report hearing the sound of marching boots or whispers in languages they don't understand. Paranormal investigators claim the energy in this cemetery is particularly strong near the memorial. Nieuwe, Begraafplaats Huis te Vraag, Amsterdam. This secluded cemetery in Amsterdam is one of the city's best-kept secrets and one of its most haunted locations. The cemetery, which has been abandoned for years, is said to be the domain of the Whispering Man, a ghost who lures visitors off the beaten path. A chilling story involves a woman who visited the cemetery to take photographs. As she wandered among the graves, she heard a man's voice calling her name. Confused and slightly frightened, she followed the voice deeper into the cemetery, only to find herself completely lost. She eventually stumbled upon an old grave with her name carved into the headstone. Terrified, she fled and has never returned. Visitors describe an oppressive silence that blankets the area, broken only by faint whispers that seem to come from nowhere. Few dare to explore the cemetery alone. Sint, Lambertus Cemetery, Maastricht. St. Lambertus Cemetery in Maastricht is known for its chilling legends and ghostly encounters. One of the most famous tales involves the Bell of the Dead, a church bell that hasn't been used in decades, but is occasionally heard tolling late at night. One terrifying encounter happened to a group of teenagers who dared each other to visit the cemetery after dark. As they wandered through the graves, the bell began to toll, despite there being no wind or explanation. Moments later, they saw a shadowy figure emerging from the church, moving toward them with unnatural speed. They fled, but the figure was said to have followed them to the gates before disappearing. Locals believe the bell signals the arrival of a restless spirit, warning intruders to leave. Many who visit the cemetery report feeling an inexplicable sense of dread, as though they are being watched. Hilversum, Martinus Cemetery, Weert. Nestled in the heart of Weert, St. Martinus Cemetery has a chilling reputation for supernatural phenomena. The most famous legend speaks of the singing priests, spirits of clergymen who once served the nearby church. These priests were executed during a period of religious persecution in the 1500s, and their restless souls are said to haunt the cemetery to this day. One night, a young couple exploring the cemetery claimed they heard faint Gregorian chants echoing through the air. As they approached the source of the sound, they saw spectral figures in robes standing by an old, cracked tomb. When the figures turned to face them, their faces were hollow and skull-like. Paralyzed with fear, the couple fled the cemetery, vowing never to return. Visitors often experience cold breezes and the unsettling feeling of being watched. The area around the priests' tombs is particularly active, with many reporting strange orbs of light and unexplainable whispers in Latin. 12. De Oude Begraafplaats, Hilversum. De Oude Begraafplaats in Hilversum is a historic cemetery with an air of mystery. Known for its centuries-old gravestones and towering trees, it has become infamous for reports of ghostly apparitions and unexplained occurrences. Locals speak of the Shadow Man, a dark figure who is said to wander the pathways after sunset. One chilling tale involves a photographer who visited to capture the cemetery's beauty at twilight. As he reviewed his photos, he noticed a shadowy figure standing near a grave in multiple shots, yet no one had been there. Moments later, he heard soft footsteps behind him, but when he turned, the cemetery was empty. Visitors also report whispers, carried on the wind, and flickering lights that seem to appear and disappear near the oldest graves. paranormal investigators have been drawn to the site, claiming it to be one of the most active locations in the region. 13. Noorderbegraafplaats Cemetery, Groningen. Noorderbegraafplaats Cemetery is known for its eerie tales of the crying child. This spirit is said to belong to a young boy who died in the late 1800s. His grave is marked by a small weathered angel statue, and visitors claim to hear the faint sound of a child sobbing near it. One terrifying encounter involved a man who visited the cemetery to pay respects to a relative. As he walked past the child's grave, he felt a tug on his coat. Looking down, he saw a pale, ghostly hand before it vanished. Startled, he turned to leave, only to hear a child's voice softly whisper, "Don't go." Visitors report cold drafts and unshakable feelings of sadness near the boy's grave. Some claim that if you leave a toy or flowers at the site, you'll hear faint laughter as you walk away. 14. Old Jewish Cemetery, Amsterdam. Amsterdam's Old Jewish Cemetery holds a deep and sorrowful history, but it is also known for its paranormal activity. Many of its graves date back to the 17th century, and the spirits of those buried there are believed to linger, tied to the tragedies of their time. The most famous haunting involves the spirit of a young girl named Miriam, who died during a wave of persecution. Legend says she was buried with a locket containing her family's photo, which was later stolen by grave robbers. Her ghost is said to appear near her grave, weeping and searching for her lost locket. One nighttime visitor reported hearing soft weeping and seeing a faint glow near the grave. As he approached, the glow took the form of a young girl dressed in old-fashioned clothes. She raised her hand, as if to ask for help, before vanishing. The visitor later learned about Miriam's story and vowed never to return to the cemetery after dark. 15th General Cemetery, Valkenburg. General Cemetery in Valkenburg is a picturesque resting place with a sinister reputation. Nestled near ancient ruins, this cemetery is said to be haunted by the Knight of Valkenburg, a restless spirit tied to the region's medieval history. One chilling tale comes from a tourist who visited the cemetery at sunset. As he admired the view, he noticed a shadowy figure clad in armor, standing near a gravestone. The figure slowly turned toward him, its hollow eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Frozen with fear, the tourist could only watch as the knight raised an arm to point toward the castle ruins, before vanishing. Paranormal investigators have recorded strange sounds in the cemetery, including the clanging of metal and faint, ghostly moans. Some visitors also report cold spots and the unsettling feeling of being watched, particularly near the knight's rumored burial site. And there you have it. 15 most haunted cemeteries in the Netherlands, each shrouded in mystery and echoing with tales of the paranormal. Which story sent chills down your spine? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying journeys into the world of the supernatural. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe avoid wandering into cemeteries after dark.